Hey all, this is Ray here with Feelings Found. I am so excited, so excited for this conversation today with Jemarc Axinto. Um, Jemarc, would you please introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, why we be here?
Oh,
Go.
my darling, I am an experience. Oh my God, let's just start there. I'm an experience and I'm a vibe. Don't look at me on paper because I'm very bad at putting myself on paper, but you put me in front of a screen with an audience, then like now we're cooking.
Here we
Yeah,
are.
no, if we want the profesh answer, so I am a subclinical mental health professional, specifically a trauma recovery coach, trauma educator, and a wellness consultant. So my work is at the intersection of spirituality and science because I'm naturally a very skeptical girly. And so I'm just like, if I'm going to give you spirituality, I need to have it grounded in science in some way. If I'm going to give science, we're going to invite some of that spiritual nature. It could be the Buddhist in me, but I'm very big on the middle way, kind of like, or it could be that I'm a Libra, who knows? But we like to have a little bit of Hannah Montana, best of both worlds vibe. In case it's not clear to anyone listening, if you're like, is this person a little? Yes, I am queer, so don't worry, I'm not offended. Yeah, I am trans non-binary, Filipinx, and ADHD as hell. So, generally speaking, I've been told my points come across very clearly, but I just have a very high energy in sharing all of the things. So yeah,
Wonderful.
I've been doing this work for I've been in trauma for over a decade, but I've been doing it professionally for pay for about half a decade now.
Yeah,
So
fair.
happy to be
Yeah.
here.
How'd you, okay, I want to, okay, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
We have so much that I want to dive into because we're going to dive into self-regulation in times of
Mhm.
crisis, which like,
Mm.
holy shit, do we need that right now?
Is
And
something happening? I don't.
what's happening right now?
Everything is good. What?
Everything's
Politically, economically, ecologically.
fine.
Y'all aren't being Delulu too? No, it was just me, just moi.
Just me. Um, um, yeah, wow, it's a lot. I want to talk about okay, I love this idea of the science and the spirituality. I want to
Mm.
know how'd you how did you come to find that those two things needed to coexist for you?
Well, the thing is, they have coexisted. This idea of science and spirituality being separate is a very, very recent idea. And it's
Mhm.
very intersected with capitalism. And it's very intersected with hyper individualism, which capitalism really gave birth to. But you look at any of the I'm gonna stick to Western scientists just because of the audience, right? Like you look at any of the praised Western scientists throughout history, between Albert Einstein or Isaac Newton, they all gave so much credit to, in their language, the Abrahamic God, but it's really just a sense of spirituality, right? I mean, if we take into
Yeah, fair point.
consideration that we're all made of atoms that somehow have some form of consciousness to it, and again, if you believe in a big sky daddy, if that's your belief system, love that for you. This is not a judgment call at all. Like we love to believe in what we like to believe in. But like at the end of the day, quintessentially, we are creation creating and getting to know its creations. So in
Wait,
doing
wait, wait,
I
wait.
know
You have to say that. Hold on, you have
I just Jaden Smithed you a little bit. I'm sorry.
whoa,
What
say that again.
realize. Yeah, so we
That was beautiful.
yeah, so we are the essence of creation
Yeah.
in the process of creating, and in doing so getting to know creation. We're all literally just trying to understand our purpose on this earth, but we can't do that without creating. And I'm not just talking about creating like an artist. Like I'm not just hitting you with the Renee Rapp type vibe here. I
Right,
mean,
right.
literally just by virtue, and again, this is Buddhist in me, by virtue of being a person with a subjective point of view, I'm immediately creating meaning. And all
Yeah.
of that meaning is informed by my karmic experiences, regardless. If I point outside the window at a tree, you and I will call it a tree. A dog's going to call it something to pee on. A bird's going to call it a house. All of those are equally valid.
Yeah.
But however we consider things, however we interact, the truth of liberation is understanding that we have the ability to change our minds. Or I'm a huge geek too. There's a really great line from Doctor Who where the doctor says, "Do you know what thinking is? It's just a really fancy way of saying changing your mind." And I adore that. So
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I love that. That's such a good point too, that yeah, they have coexisted. This has coexisted. And you know, I also have been thinking a lot recently too that the spirituality and science are, ooh, how do I articulate this? Not on the same spectrum. That's not what I want to say, but they're
Mhm.
two sides of the same coin. Like
Mhm.
I've sat and wondered, you know, in my moments of reflection, like in the mountains under the stars, the moments that we find is really spiritual, we just don't understand them yet. And so we call them spiritual. We call them something that's like otherworldly, but it's very worldly. We just
Yes.
don't have the capacity to understand it. And once we understand it, we turn it into science.
Precisely. Yeah. And it again becomes this weird thing of separation. And you know, yes, it has been a thing throughout centuries, but they also have been in contestation, right? Like when the concept that Earth wasn't the center of the universe came to be, it took a long time for that to be adopted by the collective because religious institutions were like, no, the Earth is the center of the universe. What are
Yeah,
you talking about, this heliocentric view? So I'm
right.
not saying that the separation was so very different, but in terms of it arising in popular culture, because again, back then, not as many people were educated, not as
Yeah,
many people were well read. So most of those arguments were specifically between the scientific and the religious community. But
yeah,
then you start getting to the last third of the 19th century with the introduction of Darwinism and the theory of evolution. In my mental framework of the universe, there is no context in which God and evolution can't both simultaneously exist. Like
yeah,
if we were to look at the Abrahamic view of like God created everything in 7 days, that's
yeah.
7 God days. Like for all we know, the first
Yes.
however much time is still like a day to God or 6 days to God. And then when we
Yeah,
popped up in our billion of years of evolution, that's like the seventh day. You know what I mean?
yeah.
If the
That's a good
seventh
point.
day is the day of rest and like we're looking at gestures vaguely everything happening, then
Yeah.
like God's still resting. That's why we don't. It's like, where's
That's
God? Well, 7 days a day of rest, honey. Like we don't know how long that day is from their perspective.
such a valid point. Okay, beautiful, beautiful segue then of like everything that's going on now.
Yes.
And this self-regulation, emotions, all of this.
Mm,
Okay, I want to start with, why is it so important that we focus on emotions, particularly right now?
okay. So this is great because now it's going to be recorded for posterity, and if someone takes it, I can sue them. But when my book is published, I'm a TEDx speaker. So when my book I'm writing is published, I'm going to do another TEDx talk to like promote it, get the word out there. But the opening line of my next TEDx talk is going to be this, and this is why emotional regulation is so important. The greatest existential threat to the planet, to humanity, to everything is unhealed trauma. Period. That's it. Because when we are living with constant perpetuated trauma, we're living in a perpetual survival state. And the
Yeah,
thing is, like, when you're dealing with trauma and trigger, yeah, you can perceive nuance, but when your nervous system takes over, when you're in the perpetual reactivity, you're not acting from a space of nuance. And we can take it from the acute, simple, stressful situation and then expand it to trauma. So
yeah,
if I'm out in these streets in Philly, looking cute as I am, and somebody goes up and starts screaming at me and points a gun at me, at that point, acutely, my brain's going to go into fight, flight, freeze, fawn, and I am either going to run or I'm going to freeze or I'm going to flee or I'm going to try to fight this person. At
yeah,
that point, I don't care about anything beyond surviving. Now, if I don't give myself the space I need to process that experience emotionally, to keep it from becoming trauma in my nervous system, because something doesn't become PTSD until you're dealing with symptoms for at least a month, like from the
right,
DSM.
right.
So like if I don't take the time to process that, I'm then going to go out into the world and be like, here I am in my perpetual reactivity, not able to engage with the world. So when I think about emotional self-regulation, the question is, how much have you dealt with that compounded trauma throughout your life? The thing is, the clients that I've worked here with, they're all doing, all things considered, surprisingly well. And it's
Yeah,
because they're not carrying the childhood trauma compounded into the current trauma crisis that we're in. And
interesting.
and this language is really important because the tools that I'm giving are trauma recovery tools. They are rewiring the nervous system, rewiring the brain to no longer be traumatized.
Yeah.
But you can't heal trauma in the same environment in which you've been traumatized. Until we are out of this environment, until we're back into a space where there's more opportunity for collective well-being, where every day feels like something's happening. Like January to now, we're recording this. I know y'all are like, make a timeless thing, but
Yeah.
we're recording this a
Whatever.
month from January 20th. This is the
Yeah.
longest month ever. Like even for me, this is the longest month ever.
Like it has been
Yeah.
wild. It's been wild.
Yeah.
So I want to pause and dive in. Wow. Yeah. Okay. I'm so I'm like processing my own feelings and my own shit in this moment, right?
Absolutely.
And I love the example that you use of the red hat.
Hmm.
And what it's making me think of is how, and also 1000% agree with you and the line of your next, TEDx talk, that
Thank you.
the existential crisis is unresolved, like emotional and like unhealed trauma.
Yeah.
1000%, 1000%. And because I do think a lot of people are hurting for a lot of different reasons, but no one can talk. Everyone's so stuck in their hurt that no one can
Yes.
actually hear each other.
Exactly.
And what it's making me think of too with the red hat example is this overgeneralization that we're doing
Hmm.
because we're in this trauma response. And I'm
Yes.
like guilty as charged. I will name this, I will own this, that I think I have couched people in, oh, well, if you call yourself that, then you're attacking me. You're attacking
Yes.
the people I love. When, whoa, 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 whoa. That might not be true. Every single person is different. Every single person is different. And we have to treat every single person as an individual and whatnot. And so I just think that's really interesting to think through how existing from a place of trauma can also lead to an overgeneralization of how we view the world.